What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're taking the C8 Corvette out. I'm going to go up to the mountains a little bit where it's a little bit cooler. I'm going to go over all the different drive modes and the ones that I use and give you some point of view video footage of that as well to explain it a little bit more. Alright, so we just got up to the mountains. So now we're going to go over the drive modes just a little bit. I'm sure some of you are familiar with these drive modes, but I'm just going to kind of go over how and when I use these drive modes. Now, as you can see right now, we're going to go ahead and toggle through some of the different modes or whatever. We have weather mode, which for, I guess, if it's raining or maybe if really cold out or something like that and you just want to be in a safer mode. We have my mode, which is programmable, and I'll go over that in a moment. We have tour, which the exhaust is quiet, suspension is really soft, shift points is really soft, brake response, steering, everything. It's just, one of my friends likes to call it wifey mode, and it's just, you know, a very comfortable setting. Let's see, what else do we have? Then of course we have sport mode, which opens up the exhaust, makes it a little bit louder, tightens up the steering a little bit, tightens up the suspension, throttle response, everything gets a little bit sportier. And then of course we have track mode, which is all out, the stiffest suspension, stiffest steering, quickest throttle response. And I would recommend probably only using track mode if you're on a really windy road driving very aggressively, or possibly at the track, you know, where it's probably most intended. All these modes are, you know, available just by toggling through here. As you can see, first it'll give you an indication of it'll actually say what it is, and it'll just give you an icon. So just get used to that. The little road is touring mode. The picture of a person is my mode. Picture of little snowflake is weather mode. Keep toggling through. And of course, track mode shows a picture of a track. Now also your display changes, you know, for that as well. So when you're in track mode, it's obviously more oriented as far as, you know, seeing the RPM and stuff like that, and gear selection. Now, there are a couple programmable modes, and that's Z mode and my mode. Now, Z mode is only accessible by hitting the Z on the steering wheel. And I'll show you what I have that programmed as also. So we're going to hit home here. We're going to go to settings, we're going to go to vehicle, and then you'll see Z mode. Now for Z mode, I have it set up for track on the engine sound, steering is track, suspension is sport, powertrain is track, and brake response is sport. If you go back, my mode, I have it set up for engine sound is track, steering is track, suspension is tour, brake response is tour. And the reason why is in my mode, I like it to be very comfortable, but I like the exhaust to be a little bit louder, and I like the steering to be a little bit stiffer. Now, something to make note of, say I'm driving in my mode, you know, the mode that I want to be in. If I'm just cruising around, I'm not driving spirited or anything like that, and I hit the Z mode button. Okay, so it goes to Z mode. Say, you know, someone rolled up on me on the freeway and I just wanted to drive a little bit more aggressively or whatever, just wanted to quick, you know, it's nice to be able to hit the Z mode to get to that mode very quickly. Now, if you toggle off Z mode, it doesn't go back to my mode, the mode that you were just in. It goes back to tour mode. Now, I kind of wish that whatever you had the car set on and shut off, every time you turned it on, it would go back to that mode, and when you toggle from Z, it would just take you back to the mode that you're in. But apparently it doesn't. So if you use Z mode and you're not in touring mode to begin with, just keep in mind it's always going to go back to tour mode. And then if you wanted to go back to my mode at this point, you'd have to turn the dial here. Now you're back in my mode. Another thing to make note of, say you're in my mode and you shut the car off, then you turn the car back on again. It'll stay in my mode. Now, say you go to sport mode, and maybe that's a mode that you like to stay in most of the time. If you shut the car off in sport mode and turn it back on, it'll stay in sport mode. Now, it gets a little different when you go to track mode. If you have selected track mode and then you shut the car off and then turn it back on, it's going to default back to tour mode. Kind of like the same thing with Z mode. If you have Z mode activated, you shut the car off, it's going to go back to tour mode. So it's just something to make note of. Now we're going to talk about manual mode. Now, I do like to use manual a lot. Generally, I'm a manual type of person. All my Corvettes have been manual up until this point. Even my Camaro SS1LE was a manual. Of course, that car only came in manual, but I really like the idea of being able to shift the gears myself. It's a lot of fun, but also I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the manual transmission. If I'm stuck in traffic or what have you, or just want to cruise around, and sometimes it would be nice to have an automatic. So having this Corvette with a dual clutch transmission kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You still don't get the satisfaction of being able to roll through the gears. That is kind of fun. However, with the dual clutch transmission, it is extremely fast, and I still feel it's pretty engaging. So now, in order to activate, you know, the full manual mode, what you're gonna have to do is first put it in drive. And once you're in drive, you can hit the manual mode. You'll see it comes up with an M, and then the number displayed for the gear is larger, just to let you know that now you're going to be shifting your gears yourself. Now, there's another way to do a temporary manual mode, and that is by pulling the left paddle. Now, if you pull the left paddle while you're driving, it'll go into a manual mode for a short period of time. Then you can manually shift the gears up over here, down over here, and after about 5 or 6 seconds of you just cruising though, if you're not selecting any gears or whatever, it'll default back to the regular drive automatic mode. Also, if you're in the temporary manual mode and you decide you want it to go back to regular drive mode quickly, you're just going to hold this right paddle, and that'll put you back in automatic mode. So lately, when I've been driving around, if I'm just cruising around town, I'm in traffic or whatever, I'll just leave it in my mode, like I had mentioned before. And that way I have it set for a little bit stiffer steering, and the exhaust is opened up. I really don't like it when the exhaust is very quiet. Now, when I use manual mode is when I'm driving aggressively, where I'm taking corners and stuff like that, because I really don't like, if I'm midway through a corner and I'm laying into the throttle, it downshifting. Not to say that if I'm in manual mode I wouldn't necessarily downshift, but I just like the gear shifts to happen only when I want it to happen. That's just something that I'm used to and that I like. Also, another thing to make note, manual mode also comes in handy if you're going up steep hills, like when I'm climbing up the mountain here. If I have it in just drive mode where it's in automatic, I'll find that sometimes when you're just cruising, if you're stuck behind someone going up a steep grade, that it'll kind of wander a little bit, the transmission. It'll upshift, downshift, kind of do some little wonky things just because you're going up a steep hill. Now, also on the flip side, if you're going down the mountain, something good to do is put it in manual mode as well, because that way you can engine brake a little bit and just hold a little bit higher gear. It'll slow the car down a little bit more. You don't have to ride the brakes. That's always, you know, a good tip as well. So now I kind of went over these modes a little bit. I'm still getting used to the car, so there's so many modes. Like I say, I'm used to also driving a manual transmission, so I'm trying to determine when do I actually like to keep it in automatic mode, when do I like to use manual mode. You know, I'm kind of going back and forth, so this is kind of a learning process for me. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put on the point of view camera, and I'm going to go over some of the stuff. I'm going to go for a little bit of a drive. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put it in drive mode. I'm going to put it in sport, and then once I put it in drive, I'm going to put manual mode. Because, like I said, when I'm in the mountains, we're on a curvy road, and I kind of like to be able to shift the gears myself. We're not going to do anything too aggressive, but just going to kind of go over some things. So, turn off the parking brake, and away we go. So now I'm manual shifting. Now, at any given time in any drive mode, or whether you're in manual mode or automatic mode, if you want to be able to rev the engine up or whatever, You can pull both paddles, disengages the clutch, you can rev it. Then let both paddles out, and it engages. So and the DCT transmission shifts really fast. I really enjoy it. As you can see, immediate response. This is a pretty fun road to drive on. I wouldn't really recommend coming up to Mount Charleston on a Saturday or Sunday, as the traffic is pretty bad. But if you come up here during the week, most of the day, there's not a whole lot of traffic up here. Now, I don't really like to drive too fast up here anymore, just because it's kind of risky. Kind of like to save it for the track. But I know this road pretty well, so usually when I'm going, the way you access this road is actually up Kyle Canyon Road, then you take the junction that goes across to Lee Canyon. So if you're going on the junction north, I usually take it pretty easy, kind of see what kind of traffic is up here, you know, whether there's hikers, bikers, or what have you. And then usually when I get to the end of the road, I'll turn around and come back the other direction. And there's certain spots on the road that I know that are fairly safe, that I can have a little bit of fun with spirited driving. But once again, don't like to take too many risks on the street anymore. Like to save it for the track. I just wouldn't be able to forgive myself if something bad happened up here and you know, hurt innocent people. It's one thing if I hurt myself, but so now we're going south on this junction road, going back to Kyle Canyon Road. And seeing as I just passed a cop not too long ago, got pretty lucky. He didn't pull me over or anything, turn around and come and get me. But really gonna kind of take it easy, but I figure I'd give you guys some point of view footage. Really need to get this thing out on the track. Man, this thing is quick. We have a little bit of clear road up here. Drop a couple gears. Buddy. Well, that's about it for today's video. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. If you're checking in for the first time, please subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.